Derek Chauvin was found guilty of all charges in the George Floyd case. What did his body language reveal? Does he regret his actions? And is there a subconscious message in his eye movements? We're going to find out now. The first thing that you notice right before the verdict is that the stance of the two opposing parties. There's Keith Ellison and Jerry Blackwell from the prosecution team and Chauvin as his attorney in the other. The prosecutors show open stances, not covering their bodies in any way and even using their hands as pillars over the table. That shows that they are absolutely confident about the outcome. But Chauvin's attorney looks not confident at all. He is hunching, covering his lower belly, and you can see that his wrists are tense because they don't follow the natural line of the arm. There's something to be said about Chauvin at that moment. He keeps his chin very high up and he hides his hands behind his back. There's nothing like regret or remorse in his stance. With this posture, he's making the statement that he's absolutely sure about what he did. Now, what about the judge reading the verdict? Well, for 2.5 minutes, there's absolutely no movement in Chauvin's body. That tells us that he's tense at the moment. As we go from bigger body language clues to the more precise ones, you can see that he only moves his head 4 times in those 2.5 minutes. The thing is that the first head movements are far wider than the last ones. So in the last ones, he's trying to control himself. That's a clue that tells us that he didn't expect to be found guilty on all charges, and the first movements are an actual reaction of surprise. It's only at the very end of the verdict that he does a very subtle, almost invisible nod. He's finally starting to accept what he has just heard, and again, he was not expecting it. But what really got my interest in this case was his eye movements, because this is one of the very rare occasions when you should analyze eye movements not individually but as clusters. And there's a tool in NLP that will come in handy, that is ocular access codes. These codes usually mark the eyesight origin as a neutral look to the front, but Chauvin is looking at the judge directly, then we'll be using that as our origin. In this case, I'll need that Sarah, my smart assistant for research and analysis of humans, do the grunt work of checking Chauvin's eyes. Thank you, Sarah.
My pleasure, Jesus.
Sarah will create a map that tracks where do Chauvin's eyes go so we can look at all those eye movements as clusters. The first thing you notice is that there's a heavy distribution to his right, his creative side. He's ultimately trying to make sense of that moment in his head. There are only a few blue and green spots that refer to his left or memory side, of actually remembering or accessing his memories. The difference of color marks the type of memory, whether it's visual or kinesthetic. You might be wondering, what's that bright red spot? And that's the only moment where he lowered his gaze, just for a split second when the jurors were confirming the verdict. That's the one and only moment that he showed any kind of remorse during those 2.5 minutes. There's also a strong emotional reaction right after the first head turn. You can spot that his surprise has given way to fear, same as 2:35 when his fear is almost terror. But at 2:41 he finally accepted what was going on. There's also the twitching of his right eyebrow, which jumps higher and higher throughout the verdict. There's another signal that there was a change in those 2 minutes. I insist that he didn't expect the outcome. Even so, when he stands up again, he has the same attitude of having his hand back and his chin up, showing that he has no regrets of remorse about what happened. I'm very curious is that final look he gives to his attorney Eric Nelson, like wanting some feedback, and Nelson just raises his eyebrows like saying, it is what it is. Chauvin's reactions show that even with mask it's possible to read someone's face just with focusing at the way they move their eyes, what they look for or what they're looking away from. He was not expecting that verdict. What do you think about this? I've got a special gift for you, my body language buddies. More than 100 body language tips that you can download as a free PDF right in the description. And don't forget to subscribe if you don't want to miss any of my body language analysis and tips. See you next time!